Okay, folks. Top of the morning to you. Not that I'm Irish. But I don't think my ancestors ever had any beef with them. So. Should we just paint green things today? I don't know. We got these SU-76s just been waiting here. They're not exactly very Celtic. They've already been washed. Nah. Let's finish up the Panzer IIIs. Let's do these two Panzer IIIs that are pretty much ready to go, except we're going to give it some more Nuln oil. I forgot what it was called. That one should work just fine. Mr. Ben, welcome. I was confused by the title and thought Japan might have exported some tanks to Ireland. Japan. Japanese tanks? What do the Irish do? The Irish have any tanks? I have a feeling they probably have a few, and they're probably Leopards or something like that. Irish tanks. Okay, let's work on these two Panzer III M's. And I don't care about, well, yeah, the back could probably use it. Let's do this. Let's do this treatment. It obviously made a big difference yesterday. Let's pull this bitch off. I'll take things you hear at a whorehouse for 1,000, please. Pull this bitch off. I wouldn't know. Well, I decided yesterday, about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I might as well just go in the office. I had about 4 or 5 hours worth of work. And I wasn't going to stay late on Friday to do it. And I wasn't going to give up my morning show. So went ahead and knocked that out. So we can spend the rest of the day intoxicated. No, Sunday's a dreary day for me. I am not a Sunday fan. Sunday's one of those days where it's like, did you have enough fun this weekend? Because it's about to end. And next week's going to be a real bitch. That's what goes through my mind all the time on a Sunday. I'm not a fan of Sundays. Okay. I'm starting to think this is not the brush. This is not the brush you were looking for. Because it isn't. Imposter. Japan has exported tanks. Japan and China are, real assholes when it comes to tanks. They have this obsession with Type 59, Type 85, like, come back to me when you use the same alphabet. I don't know what the hell you guys are doing over there. Could be worse. They could like not use the same numbers. But just think how much more the West or the rest, yes, both, could know about the East if they just used the same alphabet. You know, the learning curve wouldn't be the polar opposite of a precipice. You know, what was that? What was that stupid thing that wall in Game of Thrones? You can't climb that. I mean, unless that's what you're going to do for a living. What are you going to do for a living? I'm going to learn Japanese. Okay, well, that's what you're doing for a living. But on the side, yeah, I can't do that. It is so difficult, and I mentioned this before, and it shouldn't be this difficult to find what model kits a certain manufacturer makes. Used to be in the old days, you go to your local hobby store, they'd have a catalog for Hasegawa, Fujimi, Tamiya, Monogram, Revell, AMT, Ertl, Eschi, who else? DML, as we used to call them, I still call them, not Dragon Model. It probably was always Dragon Model. We knew them as DML. And just see what models they made. And it was organized by scale, by type. It was easy to find. Last night I was having trouble going to sleep and I was trying to remember these that are written down here. Flyhawk, I remembered that one. Meng, I remembered that one. Tacom, I remembered that one. Border Models, I remember that. And I go online surfing on my phone to see if there's a catalog of every single thing that Meng makes. Like, okay, Meng's supposed to be really good. Cool. Do they make any 1/72 scale tanks? I'm not going to order any. Not at that moment. I just surf around. How do you know why do you think I know so much about 15mm ancients and medieval figures? I surfed a lot, you know? And you surf enough, you like freaking remember shit, you know? You prefer vehicle names with the manufacturer designer's name in the title. Didn't the US do that in World War II before we named everything properly for them? And painted everything properly for us. Actually, not me. My people weren't on the U.S. yet. Sorry. No, but it's true. I think the Brits just felt sympathy for us. And they were trying to, you know, that we named things like M4. Like, okay, this tank, this light tank, this cute little light tank with a 37mm gun, you know, we'll call it an M3. It's like, no, that's got to be a Stuart. I said, okay, well, we've got this other medium tank that's also an M3. They should have just walked away. Just said, you guys don't know what the hell you're doing. But the Asian numbering system, I don't know if the Japanese and the Chinese use the same one. But their 0 year is like in the middle of the freaking conflict. You know? You know, because a Type 95 is a Hago, right? And the Hago came out in like 1936, 1937, something like that. I'm ad-libbing a little bit. I don't want to look it up. I'm painting. But 0 means it's pretty close to 1940. Yeah, I don't like their system. The one I don't like is a Valentine. You ever tanked a Valentine and it's not a sweetheart? Also don't like the Cromwell. It's like a shittier, blockier Sherman. It's got less armor than a Sherman. It's the one cruiser. I guess technically it's a cruiser tank. It's the one cruiser tank I don't like. Yeah, the East Asians use different years based on the current emperor birthday or ascension. I didn't vote. I didn't vote for that guy. But speaking of the Irish, why a harp? Why are you gonna put a harp on your freaking? I mean, what country ever, was glorious in battle with a fucking harp? Good morning, Harvey. Thailand and Vietnam, everyone was born aged. In Thailand and Vietnam, everyone was born at H1, so those guys coming back with 18-year-old Asian wives were pushing it a bit. Wow. Well, I'll tell Mitch he's got to send her back. Nah, she was already here. And she's like, I think my age, something like that. Well, it's unlikely that there's going to be a game hangout video tomorrow. Tomorrow is going to be a hell day for me, and then Tuesday I got to leave at a certain time for work. I got a couple of things I got to go to, which is unfortunate that they both happen on the same day because I'm going to be rushed after work. But it's probably fortunate because then it means it's only one day I got to try to get out at my normal time. Irish mythology has a story of a magical fellow who owns an equally magical harp. Is that the only story they have? Certainly they have something mightier than that. Well, I don't know enough about Irish myth. I don't know anything about Irish mythology. But there's got to be something more badass than that. Because I'm a fan of, heraldry, or, assuming it's a powerful creature like a lion or a panther, a bird of prey, or in my case, that's a bird of prey. Not some guy bending over, blowing a horn out of his ass. Or Mitch is like a pot plant. He's got like a pot plant for his. It's not really a pot plant, but that's what I tell him. But a harp? I'd rather have a goose than a harp. Musicians and poets had a special place in Gaelic society. We're talking pre-YouTube where entertainment options were limited. There's one guy's heraldry from the Renaissance, which is a pair of balls. Is it? Are they hairy? Look out, here comes los huevos. Oh, man. It was a medieval knight. Just paint his heraldry right here, and he has his balls on his chest. You know? There's this guy that I know, true story, and we were talking about heraldry. It's like, well, it's got to be better than mine. I said, so I looked his up, and it's like a baker with baker hat and everything, getting shot full of arrows. Like, yeah, that's not. A harp is more badass than that. It's called Coleone. Well, I almost ended up getting that. Forget what the hell it's called. Classified 1944 game I talked about yesterday. I looked at it, watched a couple of videos, and it just seemed like something that I already get tired of after 15 minutes. So I'd rather not blow $40 on it. But I may change my mind today, but I got the green light from the missus. But I don't know. I hate buying something and then regretting it. I may buy it on computer because at least if you get it on Steam, You can return it if you're not happy with it within a limited amount of time. Get your money back. I've done it several times. They've lied to me about how good something is, and then I get it and it's trash. So I'm like, play it like 12 minutes or something. I'm like, I want my money back. But this color, this Dunkelgelb, is a mother because it'll look good to your eye, and then you put it in one light and it doesn't look good. You put it on a green surface and it looks totally green. You take it outside, it looks totally different. I mean, that's true with every color, but man, this one is just a beast. And then I finally got it in the lighting where it looks good with the naked eye, and then I take a picture of it, and that's not what I'm seeing. Coleone derives from testicles. You have to realize that Ireland's weapon of imperial conquest is the bar. Yep. The one thing I don't understand about drinking, and this may come as a surprise to you, I don't understand getting into arguments and fighting, drinking. I am not, unlike Mitch, I am not a good natured person. I get angry a lot at work, and I get angry a lot if I'm put in situations I can't get out of. Like if I can just be like, F you, I'm walking away from it. But there's things in life you can't walk away from, right? But when I'm drinking, I don't give a crap about anything. Everything is good in the world. Maybe it's genetic. I don't know. Maybe I'm doing it right. But if you're going to come to blows with somebody when you are not in the best coordinative ability, all right, my Bushism for the day, that is not the time to start getting ornery when you can't, have your wits about you. I just never understood it. Now, with that said, there is one time, and I remember it, that I was already angry. Or as you guys say, cross. And I had a drink, and it wasn't pretty. But if I'm like totally calm first, and I don't care about anything. I'm a hugger. All right, I think that's enough of that. Way to do these side panels. I still don't know how I feel about the red numbers on this thing. They're going to stand for now, but I'm not loving it. So, if I could drink at work, I'd be a lot happier. Even though I would make a shitload more mistakes, probably. And then to think people in the, 50s and 60s used to go and have martini lunches. Man, it must have been nice. Okay, that's it for that one. Let's do the turret for her. During your travels. Ah, okay. During my travels, have you come across any books on the ships of the Victorian period? I'm doing some ironclads and other Victoria era stuff. I was hoping for something like your World War II one. Um, Not specific. I've come across some painting guides that I don't think are very useful. One thing I hate about the Victorian period. Let me get my last surviving soda inside the house, and I'll finish that thought. One thing I hate about the Victorian period is not the ships. I think the ships are kind of cool, and what makes the ships kind of cool is, for the most part, there weren't these huge classes where they made 17 ships that looked the same way. That were of the same class. Yes, there's exceptions. There's some that had 6 and 8 to a class, but have I heard, quote from Oscar Wilde, work, The curse of the drinking classes. I have not. I have not. But I rarely drink. I had a drink yesterday while I was painting here, and I even still have some left. Cheers, but I never drink. I like the idea of it. I don't like somebody telling me I can't, but I may have one drink a month, maybe. And I'll probably never be an alcoholic because I didn't have a single drink after work the last 2 months. And I mean, I should have had a whole bottle of it every night, but it doesn't solve anything. I don't need to drink here. It's when I'm in the crisis zone. Here, everything is good, especially here. Even if we do build the road wheels wrong on a Panther. Hey, blame it on those fucking Russians and their instructions. Or lack thereof. So the problem with the Victorian period is that if you look at paint guides for all the nations, they come basically in 3 flavors or variations of those 3 flavors. They're like nearly all white with ochre funnel caps, which honestly looks ugly as fuck, in my opinion. An all white ship with the ochre funnel caps. It just looks stupid to me. But hey, they didn't call me. I wasn't born yet. Shit, my people weren't even over on the island yet. They were still in the mother country, picking olives and grapes and whatever the fuck else we were doing. Overall, damn near white with the ochre funnels, or black or really dark hull with white upperworks and ochre funnels, or in the case of some Russians and Japanese, black or dark gray overall hull, light upperworks, and dark colored funnels. That's it. That's all you find out. And I find it really annoying that you would have to paint a French ship. Let's say you're doing Victorian, you're doing French and British. A lot of them are going to have the same type of paint scheme. And it's not like it's just gray or different variations of gray. It's like it's the same crap, you know. I don't like that. Now, with that said, I think the ships are really cool because nothing is standardized. You know, ramming can be a thing. Sometimes you can ram ships you have no intention. You know, friendly rams. There's a British battleship that was, I believe it was chopped in two. I believe it was a Victoria. I forget which one it was. But in the 1880s, I got a picture of it or whatever. It's in the book there. Oops. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. Oh, motherfucker. You know. Anyhow. That's the problem that I have with the period. And you can look at different painting schemes, painting guides, and they'll tell you stuff that just, or they'll describe it in ways that don't make it sound as subtle as it is. Like if you look at for like pre-World War I, World War I painting guides for, say, the Austrian-Hungarian Navy, they'll say that they're, or like the Turks, they're painted in khaki. Well, I know damn well their ships weren't painted like this. They weren't painted in this color overall. I know damn well. It was just a gray that kind of alluded to that color. So you're going to have to make some artistic choices. I would just say look at photos and kind of think of a theme because, you know, there's a lot of French ships that are overall almost white. I personally would not want a mix of all paint schemes in both navies because when they're out there, you wouldn't be able to tell who's who, you know? Conways, all the world's fighting ships. I got that one. I got all three of them. Actually, I used to have the 1947 modern one, and they sent it to me by error, and I sent it back to them. Actually, they told me to keep it, and I ended up selling it on eBay. I got no use for a 1947 forward stuff. The carrier ruined ruined any kind of naval gaming I want to do. So that's the problem with the period. Like, let's say you're doing French and British, and you're like, okay, on the fly, I would do British, the dark hull, light upper works, ochre funnels. All right, what do you do the French? I mean, you can't paint them the same. I mean, you could paint them the same, and then you'd be like, which ship is that one? You know, I would want them to be a little different. So, I don't know. And they all are going to have wooden hulls, so you can't use that to distinguish them. You know. Yeah, Conway's All the World Fighting Ships is great, but it's got no color. It's got no color in it at all. None of the Conways have any color in it, and you know, that's the problem with the thing is you've got these different. I really dislike that white with the ochre funnels. It just looks dumb. I honestly don't like the ochre that much. So I don't know if anything I told you was helpful at all, but that's the gist. You'll look through a lot of stuff and you're like, man, they're just not. Yep, Conway's. Yep, I used to go to the library at University of Florida before I had my copies, and I took all of my Secret 4 and I checked every single armor value to make sure it was correct, and I found some errors. And of course, you know, we're going to play with the correct stats, not whatever's in the rules. Of course, it's not a tournament game, so you can do whatever the hell you want. It's your game. Ah, the days of no tournament game. Where you found an error and you could just change it on the fly and wasn't a big deal. But there's probably some free painting guides. As a matter of fact, there's a website. If you don't know, if you haven't looked at any places, there's a place called War Times Journal. Okay? This is so much easier just showing you on my phone than trying to bring the window up. I'm no good at that. And I don't care that I'm no good at that. Because as soon as I figure out how to do it, they'll just change it and it'll be something else. The War Times Journal. They make some Victorian type ships in 1/2400 scale. It's www.wtj.com. And this is what it looks like. It's got, I don't know which French ship that is. Jaguar-Ribéry or Messina or one of those. So go to articles, and on articles, I'm guessing it's on articles. No. Let's go to the listing of, let's go to gaming. It's in here somewhere, unless they took it down. How about under store? Okay, under store, there's a thing, there's a heading under painting guide. Okay, painting pre-dreadnought warships. That's a really good place to start. And that's wwtj.com. And it gives you some Vallejo equivalents if you're a Vallejo fan. You know, it talks about Japan, Russia, United States, United Kingdom, French, Deutschland, Italy, Austria, what's that? Österreich? China. So let's look at China, peacetime. Black hull with white upperworks and ochre funnels. I bet if you go to UK, it's the same thing. Yeah, United Kingdom, peacetime, black hull with white upperworks and turrets with ochre funnels and masts. It's like, so if Britain fights China, they're both painted the same way. You know? Yeah, it's at least gives you some ideas of maybe, oh, Spain, look, wait for this. Peacetime. Most ships had a black hull with white upperworks and ochre funnels. The same thing. Where's France? Peacetime. Hull is black with upperworks and funnels, either silver gray or ochre. You can have upperworks with silver gray instead of white. Yeah, so you gotta figure out what works for you, and kind of look at illustrations of different ships, and maybe make something so that so the British ships. I would go. British get first pick, right? Because they're gonna have most of the ships, and I mean an immensely disproportionate amount of the ships. I mean, Britain could probably fight all other nations, the ships of all other nations combined in the Victorian period. So, it had a hard on for ships. Top of the morning, Marcus. Aye. So yeah, that's a good place to start, and do Google image searches. Google image search is the best thing because it kind of gives you you can see a trend. Because a lot of stuff is not known or the information is not written down that you want, and then there's a bit of artistic license in this hobby of ours, and you just got to do what's right for you. You know. Now I've talked about it before. If I got back into naval wargaming, that's the period I would do. I would do Victorian, and I would do a, Victorian what ifs. It's like, let's say there's a war in the 1880s, or a world war in the 1880s or the 1890s, especially the 1880s, because you can start getting the 1890s, and you can tell the trend of the ships are kind of becoming standardized. Just before Dreadnought came out, all the pre-Dreadnoughts were kind of all getting generic looking. Germany was competing with the British, and the British came out with Edward the Eighth class. I think it's the Edward the Eighth, Edward the Seventh, one of those. The ship class is huge. It's probably the biggest ship class of any vessel I can think of right now. Capital ship before the advent of the First World War. You had, I think there was like 12 or some ships like that in that class. But before that, you got onesies. Onesies they're not practical, but they're good for wargaming. Which ship do you have? Oh, I have the Victoria. Oh, there's only one of those. That's kind of cool. Wow, that plane's a big gun it's got on the front or whatever. I think the Victoria's the one that had the big gun on it. One of those ships has like a 20-inch gun or something. Probably can't hit the broadside of a barn. It's gotta ram the barn and then fire it to hit it. but they're cool. They got torpedo tubes. They got ram bows. That stuff's exciting. So I do stuff like I mean, Russia and Britain almost got into a war over it. I mean, that's an interesting thing to explore. I wouldn't want both ships painted the same way. That'd be silly. But that's the period I would do if I got back into it. I don't think I'll get back into it. I mean, I'm always willing to play. I'm just to create my own stuff. It's going to take away from this. And I'm itching to do some World War II aircraft. Have you seen the circular Russian? Yeah, the Novgorods. I mean, I haven't seen them, but yeah, I've heard of them. They weren't very practical. I think there was two of them or something like that. 1877, something like that. Yeah, they were a problem to steer in the current in the river. I think they were mainly made for like rivers and shit like that. You probably don't want to go, probably a pain to go downstream. I can imagine, I've been on an inner tube enough times at a water park. You're pretty much going to go wherever the hell the water sends you when you're round. You're going to be using your propellers a lot to like counter thrust. Any Victorian ships in particular that are definitely on your I gotta get these guys list? Is there some ship that there's no way that you're not gonna have? I like those French hotels. I think they're cool. I don't care how impractical they are. It's irrelevant, you know? And I'll tell you what I don't like about the Germans. I could see that being I could see that being a show in Britain. And here's what I don't like about the Germans. Dot dot dot. It's a weekly episode. They call their ships he's. There's the first thing. No. And there's a second thing. The turrets on the back of Bismarck aren't C and D. They're X and Y. I firmly agree with the British practice of naming them that way. C and D. C and D would be, C would be superimposed or underneath, like Rodney, on the front, and D would be, also on the front. If not, look up Russia, monitor Novgorod, and prepare yourself. Yep. Yeah, it's cool. That's the kind of stuff I like. Things that are like one-offs. Not really anything in particular. I picked up the Chilean and Peruvian Navy packs from Tumbling Dice to the War of the Pacific. I based some, but they aren't undercoated yet. I have Austro-Hungarian and Italian fleets. That's a good choice. And 1/3000 of a period up to 1914. I play what-if scenarios based on Austria objecting to Italian victory versus the Ottomans. Yeah. I used to have some Italians and Austrian ships, but I never got around to painting them. But they were bad. They were from Panzerschiff. Ugh. Some Panzerschiff things are okay, but most of them are just terrible. And most of them are terrible because of the turrets. It's almost like they use the same turret on multiple models. I'll tell you what Victorian ships I'd have to have. Those Italian ones that carry 10,000 troops. Well, Dandolo and Duilio. Okay, because one of those, I want to say I don't know which one of the two, actually carried a small torpedo boat that they could drop off the end, lower it, and it would go and torpedo somebody. And they have, I want to say they have muzzle loading guns. Muzzle loading 17.7 inch guns, 4 of them, and 2 turrets staggered on the other side of the ship. Really low freeboard. And then the ones that are supposedly geared for 10,000 troops are Italian Lepanto. And those have like freaking 6 funnels, I think. It's crazy shit. Crazy shit like that is cool. It looks like a Steampunk wet dream, you know? Those are cool. All right, you got my juices going. I'm gonna go get my book. Don't make me go get my book. Too late. I want to go get my book. And I have a soft spot for the Mediterranean. I think that's a good venue for conflicts. Certainly my favorite conflict in the Second World War. Let's see here. Man, I love this book. I'll tell you what I'm talking about and why it's so cool. Of course, we're talking about this thing. Let's go to about 1880. Victoria. Victoria was the one that was sunk. Yeah, it was ran by Camperdown. Yeah, this thing. That's how I'd paint most of my British ships. Damn near black hull, white upperworks, ochre funnels. They get first dibs. Other people just have to work around them. I don't like this ship, Collingwood. Why? It doesn't have enclosed guns. That just looks like you're gonna die. You're fixing to die, pal. All right, let's find Duilio and Dandolo. Here we go. Look at this thing. This thing looks cool. It's this one right here. This ship right here. Below, powerful Duilio in white paintwork during the 1880s. Now look where the conning tower is. It's here. It's behind the first funnel. Hope those guys aren't wearing white uniforms. And there's your two turrets. You can't tell, but they're actually they're offset. So in other words, if this is your hull, one's up here and the other one's over here. And they do have a venue where they can actually shoot through both of them and get a broadside if things are correct. But they were really fast for their day. 15 knotters. A ship with echelon. A turret ship with 2 echelon turrets with 2 guns. Duilio was the world's first battleship with giant guns and no provision for sailing. She was also the first Italian 2-shaft capital ship. So I guess ships before that had 1 shaft. Oh, here's a fun game. Here's a fun ship to war game. The progress of naval armament at the time may be gauged from the fact that Duilio first was envisioned with 35-ton guns, then 60-ton weapons, and finally saw light with 100-ton Armstrong guns, each capable of firing one 1,905 pounds, so nearly a ton, shell every, wait for it, 15 minutes. So every 15 minutes they get to fire 1 shell. I hope your naval game is a long turn sequence, or they're not going to be firing very often. Protection was equally powerful. Crusoe, steel plates for the belt, nickel steel everywhere else, and cellular compartmentization in bow and stern rafts on the waterline. An interesting offensive feature was built in the Duilio, a stern compartment able to house the 26.5-ton torpedo boat Clio, which could sally forth with an armament of 2 14-inch torpedo tubes. Hold on, I gotta go drop a Clio. Super cool. You know, at the same time, the French are building shit like this. You know, it's a hotel. Well, I'd like a room with a view. Oh, we've got many to choose from. Never mind the small cannon that's there in the porthole. Let me show you Italian. I'll tell you what I'm talking about. And I think Duilio's actually a good looking ship. Inflexible. You gotta love British names. British have the best freaking names for ships. Incomparable. Oh, here's this. Here's Italia. 6 funnels. It also has guns that fire once a week. But it was almost like the opposite. Like, basically, Duilio had like a shitload of armor. It was really slow firing guns. This one got up to 18 knots. So this is the one that was super fast. Okay? But the problem is that it had like no armor. It had like no belt armor. Oh, this one fired a lot faster. An armored trunk carried the ammunition from below the armored deck to the guns, which fired 1 round every 5 minutes. The race between the gun and armor now seemed to have swung in favor of the former, and accordingly Brin, which is the designer of the ship, he's basically Italian Jackie Fisher, cut out any waterline armor and relied solely upon a cellular raft made up of many small compartments between the armored deck, which reached the sides by sloping down 6 feet above the waterline. Where's the part where it says these guys could carry 10,000 people? Okay, in spite of adverse comments leveled by some at the Dandolo and Duilio, Britain proceeded to follow these 1875 by laying down 2 extraordinary ships, faster and more seaworthy than the 2 turret ships, able to fight anything afloat. At the same time, they would carry a large number of troops. Somewhere it says that it was like 10,000. I didn't just make that number up. I would have made up a much bigger number. Anyhow, cool stuff, man. Cool stuff. Probably do. I'd probably start with French Italian, but you know what? I'd want to do small conflicts that never happened. You know, so you could throw in Turks and I mean there's conflicts that those nations did take part in, but you know, I'd do what if stuff. That's a book that before the internet we had that on the coffee table when I grew up. You'd wake up in the morning, you'd have your breakfast, which consisted, of course, of cereal. In the United States, a junk cereal in the morning, and look through all the world's battleships. And you just remember it. You know? You just remember all that stuff from that's what got my juices going about ships. And they don't make books like that one anymore. That's probably if somebody said, "What's your favorite book of all time?" It would be that one. I'd be without a doubt. It is just. I mean, imagine if they had like cruisers and stuff too. Well, you know, it would be massive. But Cool stuff. I don't think I'd want to be in a ship with no armor, though. That nothing good can come from that. I don't know, a couple of those ship designers, though, they really wanted to build ships the way Picasso wanted to paint. Really outside the box. Hey, you know what'd be really cool? If we got the big guns that fired once a week. Then we don't have to load them so often. Hey, we want the ship to go faster. Hey, how about they don't put any armor on it? All right, that's a good idea. We'll build a couple of those, see how it goes. And meanwhile, the government's like, all right, I guess we'll go ahead and pay for that one too. I mean, those ships may make glorious, courageous, and furious seem like, normal ships. Because those battle cruisers weren't as weird as some of these wacky freaking designs. And that book's still available. I think for a pretty reasonable price. You could find used copies of it. I just think it's a great book just for the sheer inspiration you can get from it. Rumor has it the French ships look like hotels so as to include enhanced croissant storage. Hey, there ain't nothing wrong with croissant. Now, snails, I ain't eating no damn snails. I ain't eating none. Oh, they taste good. They taste just like butter and garlic. You know what else tastes like butter and garlic? Butter and garlic. Eat that. What'd you do? Run out of bread? I mean, all of us can destroy some garlic bread. I guarantee you. And I know when you mean the French, you mean the mainland French as opposed to the island French. Oh, man. Okay, that's done. That's done here. Let's go around. That's done. Let's go to the other side. Okay, that one's done. We just need to do the same thing with the other one. The Turks. I don't find the Turks very interesting. They're interesting in the 16th century, but once they start going and just, end up being a second or third rate nation, it just doesn't interest me very much, you know. All right, I need to make another cafe, and I will be right back. Oh, no. Can't use readers. Don't put readers on if you have your contacts on. It won't do any good. I'll be right back in a moment. I played that one game that Joe ran. Did I film it? We may have filmed it. Battle of Iquique. I'm trying to think who the hell I played. I like the ship that I played. Let me see what the OB on it is. Battle of Iquique. Or as you guys would call Equiqui. I don't even remember what side I played. I played Peruvian, but I did not play Huascara. I played the other ship. That was a more traditional ship than the... Two ironclad ships of Peruvian Navy, the Monitor Huascara, and an armored frigate Independencia. Maybe it was the Esmeralda that I had. Just not a fan of this time period because of the sideburns and shit. Like, really? What were you guys smoking, man? I want to say it was Esmeralda. Anyhow, it was a fun game. It's a fun game. I've been playing a fair bit of World of Warships just because it was something to do. Not that it's remotely. I'd say that World of Warships is significantly. Of course, its intent is not really to be realistic. It's a money grab. But it's significantly less realistic than World of Tanks. I mean, by a country mile. But the part of World of Warships that's fascinating to me is the range estimating part, where you can like adjust and try to get the shells to land. I think that's cool. I don't care about the torpedo shit. It's the gunfire that I think is cool. I enjoy it. It's just something to putz around with. I tried playing the other one. What is it? War Thunder? Nobody's online on the ship games. No point in playing a game online if nobody's there to play it. Yes, drinking coffee and yawning. Welcome to my life. The other thing would be cool to do is Spanish Civil War. You build all the Spanish ships and then a few outsiders that could have happened. Hood was out there. Graf Spee was out there. Germans had a couple light cruisers. Something could have spilled over. One of those German light cruisers get involved in something. It could just be with the Spanish. It could be like the two Spanish factions, and then a British or a French ship, a British or a German ship. They don't even have to fight the British. Just they just show up and they start fighting the people that are already there. I was playing a little bit of World of Warships last night, and I unlocked the what do they call it? So I know they have a World War One Karlsruhe, Königsberg, K class, German light cruiser. And there's the first ship I played that has a triple turrets, and man, when you fire a salvo and you get 3 rounds out of each one, that's pretty potent. But it's cool because you get to lead the target, and it's kind of like a shooting gallery, and you got to play keep away. But of all the people playing that game, I'm probably more into the ships than anybody else playing. They're probably just a bunch of snot-nosed kids. We're gonna have to try the alternative to this Nuln Oil relatively soon. Maybe I'll find that it actually works better. I hope so. So I was kind of disappointed last night. I was laying in bed and I got an email, and it was a newsletter from the Model Club. And the problem with the Model Club is I got there later than I would have liked. It hadn't started yet. But I sat in the back, which is where I normally like to sit, but my hearing is not the best. And some people just mumble. So I don't understand what they say a lot of times. And I thought the theme for this month was vehicles, and I mentioned it on here before, is vehicles that carried fuel or ammunition. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to bring a flamethrower tank, right? I already got one built. I was going to build the Russian T-26s. I got a couple of them. I've got one built. I've got the turret to modify this little guy. And one of the things I really like about it is people sit around and they show you what they've been working on, what kit it is, what was good about it, and they also talk about the history of the vehicle. That's the part I really like, because it's not just like people just building toys. They're interested in the real vehicle, which of course is the tie-in for a lot of us. We're interested in building these things because they're real, because they were real. But I got the newsletter, and I guess I misunderstood that this month's, it's on Tuesday, this month's theme was the ammunition or whatever, but it's actually next month. And this month's theme is like movies and stuff like that. So I'm sure somebody's going to show up with freaking Oddballs tank or something like that. I don't know. I'm just going to show up and I'll bring some other stuff that isn't movie related. I don't have any vehicles that are from a movie. Nothing. White Tiger, God, that movie was terrible. Bad trip. So the good news, speaking of Tiger, I have enough confidence now in my painting abilities, especially with Dunkelgelb, that I'm willing to try out the Cromwell Tiger 1, which is absolutely drop dead gorgeous. Unfortunately, it's 1/76 scale, so it's going to look undersized. But it is probably the most beautiful model I've ever, or miniature of a tank I've ever seen. It is amazing. It's got Zimmerit on it. I think I have the ability to be able to make that pop. You know, so you can see it 3 feet away. You know. If you paint it completely realistic with contrast, you're not going to be able to see it at the distance. It's exaggerated contrast. Not painted unrealistic, exaggerated contrast. You know, so you can see it from 3 feet away and make out the details. Not just one big blob. You know. Man, everybody went to sleep. Ate too much corned beef and cabbage. I don't think I've ever had corned beef and cabbage. But that was the, I don't know when the hell my dad got that book. Probably close to about the time I was about 11. And then when I went to junior high, I checked out books in the library on it. And I was hooked. Started building some MPC 1/600 scale rebranded Airfix models. And the rest was history. Sorry, have to go. Great chatting with you. Slain method. Okay. Have one for me. I'll have one for you. Yeah, it's always cool to talk about ships. Not a whole lot of people are into them. And given, I think the only legitimate reason that ship stuff isn't interesting is because the battlefield is usually blank. There's not like, okay, hold this woods. I mean, unless you're playing something super fictitious like Rule the Warships or like that, where you've got everything's fought in an archipelago suited to a fantasy pirate, you know. Other than that, it's battlefields are usually devoid of stuff on them. But so are aircraft games. And aircraft games seem to be pretty popular. Well, I think based on my experience, my positive experience with Dunkelgelb, I'm probably going to have to move the Panzer IV-H up in the paint scheme. It is a beautiful model. The one from Revell. I've had a long time. I built it. It even has some shirts in that are missing, just to give it some personality. Really a beautiful model. And I think I heard recently that the people that ended up buying shit, who was it? What company did Revell buy? Airfix. That Revell bought Airfix. That's kind of like Ford buying Lamborghini. Well, maybe not Lamborghini, but Audi. The old Airfix models that I had, which, were rebranded here in the United States as MPC, I don't remember being a problem to build at all. But Revell, the monogram stuff, especially Revell, I thought Revell was one of the worst models, back in the 80s, one of the worst models of that were readily accessible. I mean, there's other models that were worse, but I'm not a fan of domestic model building stuff. But all these ones that Nordic mentioned to me yesterday that are really good, they're all Chinese. Every single damn one of them is Chinese. But as a World War II fan, I have such a hard time playing World War II games. Because if you encounter something it just doesn't seem right, you can't undo it. I remember playing a demo of this game many years after it was out. This game called, I want to say it's called Men of War. It's a real-time strategy, but you got little squad guys, and you could go and you could, if you're playing the Russians, you could shoot a German and, pick up his hat and put your hat on your little guy or get ammo from him. And it's basically completely, an environment where you can really micromanage things to a really small level. And there's this Kursk scenario I was playing. I was playing a demo or free or whatever. There's this Kursk scenario you're playing. I'm playing the Russians and I'm poking along. The next thing you know, I get reinforcements and I got T-34-85s. And I'm like, I had to stop playing the game. I can't play the game. I can't play the game with a tank that comes out, a year or nearly a year before it actually came out in real life. Like, you have all this attention to detail and then you miss the obvious. Like, I have no faith in you now, so I have a problem with that, and maybe I'm too anal retentive, but it's a religious experience for me playing World War II. So if it doesn't meet those expectations, I will just go elsewhere. Okay, other than the Schertzen, we should be good to go. And I can't take any of the Schertzen on here because the reinforcement points on here are not accurate, and also you can't have this the channel by itself missing. It's basically a channel that goes all the way across. We'll call it a channel. It may actually not be a channel, but basically a point where these things hang on to. And it's not molded, it's part of the Schertzen. So if I remove the Schertzen, I remove the channel as well. Just not going to look right. So we'll just leave them on these two. We're gonna do finish this Panzer III, and then we're gonna stop, and then we'll plan on sealing these two this afternoon. Because that's the last two that go on the stands that I made. Yeah. And then we can get them finished. But this is time consuming, but I actually like this process. It's relaxing. It makes a difference. I took a picture yesterday of the Panther before, maybe it was the night before, the Panther before and after. this little dark wash. It looks a hell of a lot better with this on it. Now that was done, we're going to move the turret now. And what I really like about this Plastic Soldier Company stuff is this stuff is really robust. You don't have to worry about somebody moving this and breaking it. I mean, obviously you could ham fist it and, and cause some real damage, but you got to really go out of your way to really destroy these. And they may not be 100% accurate, but there's things you could do. Like, they have the holes there to put the turret escape hatches, and I know that the M's didn't have them anymore. You stacked so much ammo out there, nobody was going to get through. And then if you did, you got to wiggle your little Nazi ass through the running gear and everything. The Wiggling Nazi. Not exactly a good name for a bar. This little bit of TLC makes a big difference in my opinion. And one thing that is stuck in my mind from school, I will not deviate from it, is there's no way in hell I'm not wearing green on St. Patrick's Day. You freaking scar that shit in you in school. You get pinched and shit like, fuck it, I'm wearing green on St. Patrick's Day. See, nobody had to tell me. I don't know if they do that in Europe, but here in the United States, I don't know if they still do it in the United States, but I'm just telling you, in the 80s, you better walk the line or you're going to get picked on. And this flat spray, at one point I ended up leaving it putting it on too thick. I'm like, oh, this isn't going to turn out well. But it is flat as crap. I mean, it's so flat. Once again, the airbrush worked flawlessly. I can't wait to airbrush again. It's been a really positive experience. I got a really nice area with nice lighting to do it under. Could even bring you guys out there with me. Just all around positive experience. Well, I appreciate you guys being on here, even though it's probably the lowest turnout I've ever had on a Sunday morning, anyways. I suspect lots of folks are busy celebrating being intoxicated. I wonder what the consistency of that Army Painter one is. Let's go to this side over here. And once we're done with this turret, this thing should be good to go. We'll let it dry for a little bit and come back this afternoon and spray it. do the same thing there. I don't think I colored that one in. I'm not a fan of shirts, but I do like the look of a Panzer III. It just looks kind of like what a tank should look like. Let's put a little bit more black in the smoke candles. What else we got on here? Okay. Pair of Panzer IIIs. 3Ms. So we're going to go ahead and sign out of this session. You guys enjoy whatever it is that you want to celebrate today. And we will see you guys on the next one. Have a good day, folks.